Hey, welcome back, everybody. Open Game, episode 13. I'm your host, Scribe Sayer, and we got Boys in the house, the co-host for today. We have special guest from American Kenpo Karate Studio in San Diego, California, Todd McElhinney. And we want to get into some history of what the American Kenpo Karate Studio has been up to, when it started, and all that good stuff. So, hey, Todd, how you doing today?
Doing great.
Right on. It's good to have you here. I can see you got a shirt on, American Kenpo 50 years. Tell us when you started.
Well, I started in 1971, 15 years old, and it was a perfect time for me. I'd been kicked out of 2 schools for fighting, and I needed to kind of project some of that energy in a more positive way. So I got into martial arts and just fell in love with it. Next thing I know, I was training 5 days a week, 3 hours a night, keeping off the streets.
Yeah. You know what? Can you tell us real quick, in your opinion, and it could be a professional opinion for that matter, how many people come into your dojo over the years that are in the same boat as you?
I would say parents bring in their kids when they're having a little bit of trouble. Most of the time, it's the kids that have high energy and they're trying to get them directed and calm down or into something that they can get rid of some of that energy in a positive way. Sometimes we get kids, teenagers coming in that maybe have some anger issues and stuff like that. And again, like I did myself, we directed to, hey, instead of punching people, maybe you come here and spar or hit the bag and get that out in a more positive way.
Right. And so one of the important things for us to project to the audience is that martial arts in general, any kind of fighting style, is typically primarily for discipline, right?
Yes, that's a big factor for it too. Yeah.
Right. And then all the fighting, protection and being able to fight as well comes with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Achievement of goals, gives you more self-esteem, feel better about yourself. Usually you feel better about other people too. And it's just, for me, it was great.
Okay. So how long did it take? You were 15. How long did it take for you to improve your attitude?
I would say right away. I was at the studio 5 nights a week. I'd get home from school, eat, ride my twin Stingray bike up to the studio. Back then we could leave it out front unlocked. And once I got my orange belt, then I started showing up 5 nights a week. I'd sometimes work out on my own, hit the group classes, do the private lessons, and just, as it was, after about 9 months worth of training, one day, one of the instructors says, "Hey, can you fill in for me on a Saturday?" I go, "Yeah." He goes, "But don't tell the boss about it. He's not supposed to know." I said, "Okay." So that Friday, I was in there working out, and the boss, Dick Willett, our head instructor, he says, "Hey, I heard you're going to do some teaching Saturday." And I was like, "Yeah, is that okay?" He says, "Yeah, sure." So here I was at 16, started teaching karate. And next thing I know, I was working 5 nights a week. Back then we were getting paid 3 lessons plus $2 an hour. But in 1972, minimum wage was like $1.35. So we were making good money.
Yeah, and so you had responsibility thrown in there with the discipline right away. That's awesome right there. Tell us, were you born in San Diego?
Yeah, Sharps Hospital. Right up there. Okay. My dad was in the Marine Corps, World War II, Korea. And so we moved out my parents moved out from Pennsylvania. And of course, I was born, 1957, Linda Vista, Sharps Hospital. Yeah.
What's the name of the location where American Kenpo Karate is located?
We're right in the middle of North Park, right off the major 805 freeway, but centered right in the middle of San Diego. It's really especially when we first opened up in 1968, you were right in the middle of town. Okay. As it is now, even with people living so far outside of town, so many people commute to San Diego to work. Oftentimes, though, after work, come to the studio. So I have people from all over San Diego County taking lessons.
Right. So where were you? What was your neighborhood before you had opened up the studio?
Well, I basically grew up in Old Town San Diego before it was really like it is now, more of a state park. Back then, it was more just of a small neighborhood that had a state park close by. And then we moved up to North Park when I was 10 years old. And I live probably 12 blocks away from the studio. So it was a simple bike ride to get there and do my workouts.
Has much changed since then, Todd?
Yeah, the neighborhood, like I say, it's changed over years. It's gotten much better now. North Park is full of restaurants, the breweries. There's a lot of building going on, so there's condominiums going up everywhere.
Right. What was your greatest accomplishment prior to opening the karate studio?
Well, like I said, I started teaching at age 16. So being a 16-year-old karate instructor, I thought it was a cool job. I was talking to one of the other black belts the other day. I said, "Yeah, I remember friends picking me up one night, Friday night, and here I'm locking the studio up." That's like, and I had the responsibility of making sure that happened. But I had a cool job. Most people at 16 are working at a fast food, if they're working at all. And so that was great. And then, of course, getting my black belt at age about 18 and a half. So it took me about 4 years, and which was pretty fast. On average, I tell most people in Kenpo Karate, we're looking at more like anywhere from 7 to 8, maybe 10 years. Okay. But again, I did it when I was very young. I could train every day. And then after that, I think one of my biggest accomplishments was when I came back in the 80s, was being put on the one of our black belt teams, which our group of fighters in general were called the Wild Bunch. And so our black belt team, which consisted of Dave Hayes, Ornette Chicken Gabriel, most people just know him as Chicken, Frank Moffness, myself, and Terry Crook. And that was, we first year I went to the internationals, I fought on sort of the B team. And but we actually did better than the A team that year. So then the following year, I got promoted to the A team, and we fought together for probably 4 or 5 years, and just made the whole circuit. We actually would have won the internationals one year, but Chicken got 2 points taken away from him for talking, and we did arguing about talking. So we lost by 1 point. So without those things, we would actually beat the other team.
What was the key factor or factors that motivated you to open American Kenpo Karate?
Well, like I say, our head instructor, Dick Willett, opened up in 1968. He came down from, you say you're up in San Jose?
Right.
Well, he was San Mateo, which is very close by.
Okay, yeah.
Worked in the probation department for 10 years or so. Got his black belt with the Tracy's organization, came down to San Diego, opened Tracy's Karate, which was the first international chain of karate studios. He ran it for 18 years. Like I say, I started in 71 there, got my black belt from a second generation black belt, his name McElhinney. And then I was gone for a few years, stuff came back in 82. And then in 1987, Dick decided he wanted to retire. So I had the opportunity to take the school over or to buy it. And so the opportunity, along with being able to do something that I love doing. So if you can do what you love doing and make a living at it, I mean, what's better?
Nothing's better than that. We all agree with you on that 100%. I'm proud of you for doing that move and for being who you are today after all these years, man. You established yourself in 87.
87, yeah.
Okay. And what is American Kenpo Karate, and how does it differ from other forms of karate?
Well, first of all, the Kenpo Karate is a style that's always added to it what was available. It started out as a Kung Fu system, Kwan Fa in China, migrated through Korea, picked up the Korean kicks, through Japan. In Japan, they had a lot of the Jiu-Jitsu wrist locks, things like this. So it really was a mixed martial arts from the very beginning. Then Professor Chow was the first to open up to the American public in Hawaii. Ed Parker, one of his top black belts, brought it over to the United States, I think in 1957, and opened a school in Hollywood area. And the Tracy brothers were black belts of his. They were the ones that actually started the Tracy organization. They had the business system. Back then, karate studios were very few. Most people were learning, in a basement somewhere from somebody that was a black belt or something like this, maybe the YMCA or something. So they had the business system, so they started opening chains of studios. Okay. In addition to that, since coming to San Diego, we broke away from the Traces organization back in the late 70s. And since then, we added kickboxing, Muay Thai with Charles, we'll be talking to later and stuff. 14, 15 years ago, again, one of the instructors I got my black belt from in Kenpo, who was a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu style, came to us and said, hey, I want to show you guys this stuff. So then we added the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Now we have the ground fighting. So we had the tournament karate, kickboxing in the 80s and so, and then we added the ground fighting in the last 20 years or so. Okay. And so it's really a style that's constantly changing.
Right. I was thinking when you were talking about how there was very few studios at the time that the instructor that you referred to, what was his name?
Dick Willett.
He had opened the American Kenpo. Was it called American Kenpo Karate back then?
Karate at that time because we were with the Traces organization.
Okay. And when he opened it, you said there's very few. And it reminded me when Bruce Lee, he has a different discipline, which is Jeet Kune Do, correct? And was he one of the initiators for California to start to boom prior to you guys?
I think the boom started with all the kung fu movies, which of course Bruce Lee was a big part of. Back when I started in '71, we had Billy Jack was one of the first that had a lot of martial arts in it, and then you had all the kung fu movies for about 4 years or so. And then after Bruce Lee died, there was nobody really kind of took his place in the movie industry, so things kind of really slowed down. And then, of course, later on, Van Damme, Jackie Chan, they added their elements to it. Jackie Chan, the comedy aspect of it. Van Damme, with the great kicks. And then that kind of gave us a boost again. So every few years or so, when you have these martial arts films come out, I think that really kicks the interest in for the general public. Of course, back in the 70s, during the kung fu boom in the movies, we had like 9 studios in San Diego alone. And every time a guy got a black belt, they'd sell him a franchise, he'd open a studio. So we pretty much had San Diego socked in with studios.
Did anyone famous or become famous come through to visit, train, compete, teach, etc. at your studio?
Early on, and this again was primarily because of Dick Willett, our head instructor. He was very good friends with a man named Joe Lewis, not the boxer, but the karate guy. Joe Lewis at that time was 3 times international karate champion, U.S. kickboxing heavyweight champion. Later on, he got into movies and stuff, but in the 70s, he would run seminars for us probably 2-3 times a year, and he had a very innovative fighting system. He had trained with Bruce Lee for about a year, and I think many of the things Bruce was coming up with that were so revolutionary at the time, Joe was taking into the tournament circuit as well as into the kickboxing. So we really had an advantage in that we had this new style of tournament fighting that nobody else had, for several years. So Joe coming through this was a big thing. And then one of Chicken Gabriel's students, Steve Nasty Anderson, the all-time greatest point karate fighter. You could add Joe Lewis, Chuck Norris, Mike Stone, 3 of the major guys back in the 70s. Their whole career together doesn't amount to what he did. Of course, he came in at a time where you could go to a tournament every month. Steve was, I think, national champion 7 out of 8 years. The year Billy Blanks went to the Olympics and won the gold medal, Steve had beaten him 6 or 7 times. They fought each other. The following year, he beat him every time. Billy Blanks, of course, most people know from Taibo, but they forget that he was, one of the first gold medal. First year they had the Olympics in the gold medal Olympics, or Taekwondo in the Olympics, he won the gold medal. Now, more recently, a French actor named Alain Deleville, a lot of foreign action movies. Well, he came into town, dropped by my studio, wanted to work out. We got to talking, and he put a series together that was filmed here in San Diego called Anatomy of Anti-Hero, and which I'm in several episodes, mostly just being a trainer and stuff like this. And we're working out in the studio. So the studio is also shown in that. And that you can see on, Amazon Prime. And hopefully she's going to come back once this pandemic settles down. He can get back from France. We're going to do a few more episodes. So those are some of the key people in the history of our studio that just have come through.
Okay. I remember you talked to me about Benny the Jet one time. Was there any connection with the studio or had any visits?
Chicken, when he was fighting full contact, him and Benny the Jet, they went over to Japan and both fought on the same card. That year, Chicken beat the Japanese champ, 1975, I think it was.
Nice.
And my first remembrance of Benny the Jet was the 1973 Internationals up in Long Beach. And him and a guy named John Natividad were fighting for Grand Champ. So they had a tie score after 3 rounds of 12-12. So they had what you call sudden death overtime. And unfortunately for Benny lost by 1 point in overtime to John Natividad. And then Billy, of course, went on to do a lot of stunt coordination and stuff like this for movies such as Roadhouse. I'm sure many others.
Oh yeah.
Martial arts films.
What are a few memorable moments within the history of your dojo? Well, and let me add to that, because this might be different than what you said prior to. What I mean by that is, like, personally, I've been there many occasions, and there's some interesting things that have taken place. So, is there something that a story or two you could share with us that's happened?
Well, first of all the black belt tests in general are a memorable moment. You know, people achieving these goals. And as you know, all our black belt tests, everybody has to fight. So there's you know, that's really at the heart of our school, has always been a good fighting school, not just turning out, you know, people that are good looking martial artists and do nice, pretty things and kata and stuff, but they're all fighters. It's all people you would like to have, you know, watching your back if you needed it. Okay.
Right.
Accomplishments of the school: we won the U.S. championships in 1980 in Florida. That team, let me get these guys' names out here right. That team had Terry Crook, or Ned Chicken Gabriel, Steve Nasty Anderson, a guy named Larry Quickdraw McGraw, who was the top lightweight fighter in the whole nation at that time, a gentleman named Steve Fisher, and that was a big accomplishment back then. We got on the news channel and stuff like this, and you know, this was, we beat a team that had won it previously 5 years in a row, and so that was a big accomplishment. Different things at the studio over the years. Can't get into too many personal things. I think Charles, who you're going to talk to later here, I still remember when he came in the studio, he was 12, maybe 13 years old. Kind of like myself, I think his mom wanted him to do something. And I don't remember them having a lot of money and stuff like this. In fact, he probably, after a couple, 2-3 months, wasn't paying for lessons anymore. But he loved his stuff. He was working out hard. We got him in there teaching. Then he later got into the kickboxing stuff, and I remember the first time we went to go, you know, actually got into boxing first. First time we went to go watch one of his amateur boxing matches. It was downtown San Diego, and it was up above this bar in a room where they just put this ring up in the room, and that was just, you know, that's just down and dirty fighting, you know. Mm-hmm. And then, like I say, he continued on, and he'll talk later about, I'm sure, his kickboxing career has been phenomenal. They were able to take a team with a gentleman named Kenpo, which is really, his name is Marty Kenpo Luckhurst. Took a team over, and they fought the national, did an exhibition fight with the national Chinese team in China. And that was a great experience for them, I'm sure.
Oh yeah. What was Charles the first person that joined American Kenpo Karate and then moved into Muay Thai?
I would say, yeah, he was probably, we did have some guys doing kickboxing prior to that, but they were doing the PKA, which was no leg kicks, wasn't the Muay Thai stuff. So we did have a few professional fighters, but he was the first to go heavy into the Muay Thai. And we got some guys in that knew Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and started teaching these guys. So that was a whole nother era of American Kenpo, where, you know, for 10 or 12 years, these guys were fighting in the cage professionally. You know. When I started back in 1971, there was 3 studios within the area. Like, we had Mr. Lee, who had a Taekwondo studio down the street. Dick Willett opened the Tracy's Karate, and there was another gentleman who had a judo school that was over more in the Hillcrest area there, but all within driving distance. But
Right.
I don't remember there being a lot of other schools other than that.
Okay, so and you guys are still there. What do you think it is that kept you guys alive after all the years?
Well, one, all the black belts, they've always come back to help out. When I took over, I had guys coming up to become black belts that were doing instructing for me. We had our team still fighting. We would have nights where we'd have 20 black belts in there working out fighting. Okay. And that kept us strong out there in the martial arts community. But as far as the business community, good location. We always kept our prices affordable. I think the fact that I put people on programs without contracts. So they're staying there because they want to be there, not because they're stuck on a contract. So they're getting great instruction. So that's a big part of it. I think, again, location, we're very centrally located. And more importantly than anything is the students, because without them, we wouldn't exist.
I like what you said about having instructors work there without contract, because I was going to ask you next, do you feel that the instructors, everybody that participated, including yourself, is community minded?
Oh yeah, very much so.
Right. They actually cared. It wasn't a membership where it was very cold and sterile. It was, more of family.
A school not only of the black belts that came up through the system, and Dick Willett, like I say, he had a personality and such that he would attract black belts from other organizations because, again, I think they liked the idea we're all good fighters. We had that camaraderie of being fighters. And it was a school that a black belt could come into town and say, hey, I want to come in and train, and we're not taking them in the office trying to put them on a contract. He said, yeah, well, come on in and work out with us. And if they were good black belts, they'd come back. You get guys in there sometimes, they get the hell beat out of them, and then you never see them again. But if they were good black belts, they liked the atmosphere. They came back then, So it was a real camaraderie in that respect.
And one thing I like to point out is the people's choice. I feel like American Kenpo Karate Studio at 3030 El Cajon Boulevard in San Diego, California, is the people's choice from what you're saying. And that's very important to me as an artist. I think that that's the way we should move forward in arts and community-minded organizations, anything that has to do with working with others.
Patty McClintock, she in her after work, she would spend one night a week working at the rape crisis hotline. And so she saw this need for women to be able to defend themselves. So with the help of Charles, myself, and some of the other instructors, she started running seminars all over San Diego, teaching women self-defense awareness too, how to avoid situations, not before you get yourself in trouble. And she has continued to do that, moved back to Minnesota with her family and did that there. And for many years, she traveled the country running these seminars in different cities and such. Now she works at a local YMCA there and works with seniors, teaching them, martial arts and such too. So it's been very community oriented in that respect. Chicken Gabriel, who of course, very community oriented and stuff like this with the black community. So he brings in students not only that maybe can't afford it, but they want to do this. And he being in San Diego most of his life here, he has parents of kids whose parents were his students years ago. And so they're bringing their kids in because they're trying to keep their kids out of trouble too. Like I said, they bring them in and give them some focus, give them some direction, and as well as teach them self-defense.
Chicken has established a reputation.
Funny story. The first Martin Luther King parade back in the 80s, one of our black belts, named Herb Pattis, was joined with Chicken.
Oh yeah, I know Herb.
They're carrying a sign. They're going down, was it National Avenue, I think it was, whatever it says. After a couple blocks, you would have swore, because the reaction of the crowd, that it was was Chicken Gabriel Day, not Martin Luther King Day, because everybody's hi chicken, hi chicken. Every block there was people that knew him.
Right, right. That's awesome right there. That's community leadership. It's the people's choice. So I'm glad that you brought up Chicken, and he's been a part of that, and we've been a part of his world as well. So I look forward to seeing that guy again.
And to say something about Chicken, I would say he is probably one of the greatest instructors of all time.
Nice.
He's a tremendous motivator. He opened his studio in National City, I think it was 1972, first Black-owned business in National City. That thing ran wild and crazy for about 15 years. Just turned out incredible black belts. Steve Nash Anderson, who we talked about earlier, was one of his black belts. And they would go to a tournament, all dressed in black with red lettering on their back, maybe 30, 40 people strong, and take everything. They just had incredible fighters.
Yeah, just dominate.
Yeah.
What is it that you teach at your studio?
Okay, well, we teach Kenpo Karate. Okay, we teach tournament karate, which is point fighting. We teach kickboxing. Charles does personal training there too, also teaching the Muay Thai. And not for the last year because of the pandemic and stuff, but we also teach Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Okay.
Which I hope to get back in hopefully before the end of the year. And then of course with the kickboxing, you're learning boxing. And then so you got your kicking range, your boxing range, your knees and elbow range, and now you got you on the ground. So you got all the facets of fighting you can learn in one place.
Who can join to your studio?
Well, basically, the only limit on joining my studio is I don't take any kids younger than 5. I always tell parents, some people call me the kid's 3 years old. I said, he's just learned to walk. Give them a couple of years. By the time they're 5 years old, they've gone through preschool. They may be in kindergarten. So I understand they have to stand in line. They have to be quiet, and their attention span is much better. So anyone, I've got kids 5 years old. I've got my oldest adult is 72. So a whole range, men, women, children. With our lessons, with the private instruction, all our classes or programs are designed. Everyone gets 2 private lessons per month, or they can also get 4 if they want to pay extra money, but 2 private lessons a month, plus all the group classes, weekly group classes. So in the private lesson, they're learning at their own speed, learning, what area that we teach they want to maybe specialize in, whether it be the Kenpo, kickboxing, Jiu-Jitsu. They can do that, and they're learning at their own speed, which is great, especially for a kid 5 years old. You put them in a group class with a 10-year-old, they're not going to be learning the same. Okay, you put the 5-year-old with a private lesson, I can take them at any speed that's good for them.
What accomplishment or accomplishments do members typically leave with after a day of instruction at AKK?
Well, one, I think the ability that they have learned something new, that they've accomplished something. Okay, with a group class, you finish a good hard workout, you feel great. Okay, you made it through that good workout. Also, especially with kids, they're accomplishing goals. We make it so that it doesn't take forever for a kid to get his first belt. Most kids, 2 to 3 months, get their first belt. That's a sense of accomplishment. And then as they move on, they have to remember what they learned in their first belt. So it really, I think that's the biggest thing you come with. A great feeling from a good workout, and the fact that you learned something new that day, something that you could put to use, and your own personal goals that you accomplish along the way.
Right. And we talked about before, discipline being a major contributor to these kids' lives going through your studio.
Yeah, definitely so. I mean, you have a group of kids, and luckily we keep our classes fairly small. A big group class might be 15 kids. So it's not so overwhelming. I think of 4 teachers with a classroom of 30 kids. And I have different age groups and stuff too. So these kids, they have to learn, hey, you have to stand still, you have to be quiet, you have to listen. if you don't, there's punishments involved. Usually it's a matter of doing push-ups. Sometimes we give them a timeout, something like. But usually it's not a problem. If you keep the classes interesting, you keep the kids' attention. You don't have as many problems as if something's boring. Now a kid who's got a lot of energy, he's gonna wander around. He's gonna want to talk. But if you keep the class interesting, you keep it moving, you keep the kids working, they're gonna accomplish those goals. They're gonna learn that discipline.
How can people in the area learn more about AKK, and how can they contact you to sign up?
Okay, they can check out the website, which is MMAKenpoKarate.com. You can go to the website. There's a history of our school on there. There's a gallery of pictures, things, and it tells you the prices and such. Or I tell people after they email me, just give me a call. I'm real old school here. 619-283-6596. I can answer all your questions with minutes, rather than we email back and forth. And then finally, after emailing back and forth, you do call me. So that's the way to do it. Just give me a call. I can give you all the info you need over the phone. I'm not going to be trying to give you a hard sales pitch. I'm just going to tell you what you need to know to get started. Yeah. And of course, they can if they're still not, sure about it, we can always establish an appointment where you come down, see what we do at the studio, sit down, talk with me, answer all your questions you might have.
And you get a chance to come in if you want and to see what everybody else is doing in their class.
I don't do any free lessons. I've had students I talked to that have said they've taken free lessons all over town. They go in for the free lesson and they go to another school, free lesson. But we do usually have a special, like the first month is half off. Also, all our programs are month to month, no contracts, no enrollment fees. So worst case scenario, you try it out for a month, cost you $50. If you don't like it, well, you've got a chance to really see if you're going to like this or not. And most people, like I say, they're going to continue on after the first month. And I say my students stay with me in the majority. They make it through 2-3 months. They're going to be students for 3 or 4 years. And that's because they enjoy their classes.
Right. Are people welcome to come into the studio during class time and watch what you're doing to see?
Usually if someone, especially with the children, if they, they want to come down and watch, see what a class looks like.
Right.
So I invite them to come down. I usually try, if I can, set a time aside. So while they're watching class, if they have some questions, I can answer questions for them.
That's great right there. I like that. And I really appreciate you being old school too, and just straight up front. Call on the phone. I love that. That's my favorite kind of people right there.
You have to do not text me. My phone does not text.
Right.
To me, texting is just like email. We're going back and forth. Call me. We got a dialogue going. I can answer all your questions.
Yeah, Todd kind of answered it, but I just wanted him to go in a little more in depth on the benefits of joining a martial arts organization. And from the standpoint that I'm coming from, like I know for a fact that any kid that starts off in the arts, whether it be drawing, dancing, singing, or whatever, it's a proven fact that not only do they do well in school, they also do well in life. Yeah. And I've noticed, I actually have a lot of uncles that did martial arts growing up, and none of them taught me how to fight. So I ended up being bullied and got into a situation where I took someone's life and had to go to prison. And I found out just before my pops died that he was actually a boxer, even though he wasn't in my life, Yeah. So the benefits of martial arts, as well as my experience pretty much with almost every person that I've met in my lifetime. I'm 54 years old, that is a martial artist or that grew up in that lane. They seem to be pretty good people. They seem to be community organized people. They seem to be very humble. And a lot of people get the wrong idea. They think people that do martial arts are violent. And normally it's the other way around. So I just wanted you to expand a little more on the overall benefits of that community.
My dad, of course, died when I was 10 years old. So that may have been a factor why I was getting in fights and getting kicked out of schools. And I think fighting is like anything else. If you're good in school, reading, whether you're good in school at standing up and speaking in front of the class, those things become part of your identity. Well, mine was being a fighter. So I didn't start fights, but I wouldn't avoid them. Okay. So again, martial arts gave me an outlet for that in a positive manner. I could go down to the studio and spar with guys. And like I say, you learn that oftentimes I think people fight more out of a sense of fear in some ways, that they feel like they can't walk away from it because people would think that they were scared. It's like I tell people, you get to the point where you can walk away from somebody, an altercation, because you know you could have taken care of it. So you have that confidence. I can walk away and not feel like, oh, everybody's going to think I was scared, or they're going to talk bad about me and stuff. But they do, so what? I tell people, when a little 5-year-old comes up to you and challenges you, would you fight him? No. Well, then why fight somebody you're looking at? You can take this guy. Why fight this guy? So that was part of it for me to do that. And then of course, like I say, do I want to make myself or my other instructors look bad because I'm out here using the martial arts in a way I shouldn't be doing it? And that becomes a factor. And like I say, working with people, like I say, I started teaching at 16 years old. I remember one of the psychologists I used to teach, he said, you're a lot more of a psychologist than you realize, especially with the private lesson. You're doing a personal thing with everybody. You get to know people better in that private lesson than you would just people in a group class. So that, and like I say, working with kids, bringing them up from young people to adults. But yeah, I do think martial arts or any art, like you say, in general, you give a child a direction, okay? Whatever it be, and it's something that they really enjoy doing, like I said, they're going to do better in everything else.
Yeah,
that was awesome.
It's funny how I hate fighting. I mean, I detest it. Now, yeah. Some fights I like to watch, but in real life, I can't stand it. So I was always forced to fight. And I like what you said about a person knowing that they could take that person, but having enough courage and humanity to walk away. Because men normally, when we get approached or bullied, we hear all these things in our heads, telling us, I can't let this dude do this to me, or next time he does this, I'm going to do this. And there's so much stuff that goes on in your head. But if you have a confidence knowing that you don't have to fight a person, and unfortunately, in some situations you do, some people just won't let up. Bullies are assholes. Excuse the language.
Well, sometimes, somebody just takes a swing at you. You got to defend yourself. It's all self-improvement, You're learning martial arts, but you're improving your life. Okay, you're learning, especially young kids. They're learning important life skills.
Right.
Not just how to kick and punch, but how to deal with problems. In a positive way.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Todd. Appreciate you being on the show and having an interview with us. We look forward to coming down there and visiting your studios again real soon, and just passing the word along to everybody and let them know what you guys are doing over there.
All right. And boys, very good meeting you.
I appreciate the service. I want to commend you on your career and all the people that I know that you've helped raise, that you've helped given a life skill, so many things, man, concerning a community. I'm just really honored to have you on our show. I really appreciate you expressing yourself and being open. And like I said, pretty much almost every person that I meet that's in the martial arts are pretty good people. I could tell you're a great person, bro. So thank you for your service. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so definitely everybody out there, check out the website that we're going to have posted for you right here to look at and see what Todd's doing and all of the other instructors that's there, and check out some photos and read up on what's going on the website and give him a call.